Catch First and 12 Sundays from 10 to noon on The Zone. It's brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your favorite local brands. Macy's, happy shopping. It is time to welcome in Kevin Graham, longtime friend of the show, former coworker. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you? And PK, how is my old home of Phoenix? I'm assuming you went and took a dip in my old pool that I used to have and everything else there.
It's somebody else's backyard. He's in there swimming.
You know what's really sad? You guys ever do go Zillow? I don't know if you guys have lived in multiple homes like I have, but you know I've Zillowed that house. Oh yeah, and it's still got like pictures of our old furniture in it and everything, reminding me of how beautiful that place was. Yeah.
The North Phoenix one you're talking about?
Yeah, remember that one?
Alpha Joe Max.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Oh
you know
yeah,
exactly
you're an idiot. You should have stayed there for the rest of your life.
Well, I mean, I ended up getting divorced, and I had no choice. But yeah, you're right.
Well, then buy it back. I don't know, man. That place was awesome.
I know. The only reason I could afford it is I got it on a short sale when the economy was really bad and the real estate was there. Yeah, I couldn't afford that house now.
Yes, but I go and sneak in at the point, right? Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right. Do you still do that? I remember that. Didn't I join you guys there? We were like hanging out at the pool.
Yeah, you did.
At the hotel. PK sneaks into resorts pools in Phoenix.
So, you can't blame a guy for trying.
Yeah, I know. You're right. They think they had a bar there and everything. We were like going up and like kind of like the movie Fletch, like put it on the Underhill bill.
A funny story. So when my kids were little, that stuff, I think you might even had to have a room number, right? But there was a McDonald's right down the street. So we go to the McDonald's and bring it back, and then my daughter's like maybe 7 or 8, and she comes back. She's carrying the bag on the other side of the pool, and some worker says you can't have that there. So across the pool with all these people, we're not supposed to have McDonald's. We got caught. We can't have this food here. And she yells it back to us. Like, whose kid is that? I don't know that kid.
Security rolls out and escorts you out of the pool.
Yeah. So, yeah, that place is nice if you, especially if you don't have to pay the exorbitant prices.
That's right. Awesome. Well, good.
Kevin, usually you come on and complain about 3 things, but today I want to start the whining and complaining.
I've heard you tease this throughout the morning. I'm excited.
Have you looked at the NFL this weekend? There is one game matching teams with winning records, and it's Monday night. It's a Sunday full. It's a poo-poo platter from the NFL. There are so many bad teams. There are a couple games that match teams with winning records against teams that are 500. But even that Niner Packer game, which sounds like a good idea, it sounded like a great idea when it was scheduled. If Brock Purdy doesn't go, they're not really a 5-5 team. This is terrible. This is a terrible weekend. I know, but you know what?
These are the weeks though that surprise you. I mean, look what happened last night. I mean, a 2-8 Browns team left for dead. They beat Pittsburgh, and Browns did everything they could to lose that game with fumbling late and giving up 2 quick touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, that's the thing about the NFL, though. Every week there's someone that pulls off the shock. Maybe the Browns have pulled that off, but I'm not writing off this week, DJ. It's going to be a crappy week. I mean, the game you guys are going to be carrying on Channel 2, the Broncos and Raiders, that'll be a crappy game. But other than that, you never know. Indianapolis at home against the Lions. I mean, the Lions only score like 50-some points a game. That one's probably not going to be it. There's going to be an upset or two this week.
Dallas at Washington is going to like 70% of the country, including where you are in California, in Utah, where PK is in Arizona. That's a terrible game.
No, that's a bad game. But that's the Cowboys. You got to put them on TV because for whatever reason, people want to continue to watch.
Quarterback, blah. We know the story. They're going nowhere.
Yeah, well, no, Cooper Rush, who's a Central Michigan grad. I feel bad for him, by the way. He's on a really bad team right now. But no, Cowboys are an absolute train wreck. So you're right on that one. But, I mean, I think Arizona-Seattle is actually going to be probably one of the better games. I mean, that one's a toss-up in my opinion. So there should be fine. But I agree with you. It for whatever reason, this week doesn't look great. But it's going to be topped off. I mean, Monday Night Football, like you said, is the only winning. I mean, Ravens, Chargers, that one I'm going to be very intrigued to see. See if the Chargers can really put up see how real they are, I guess, is what I want to look at. I mean, obviously they blew the 21-point lead against Cincinnati, but turned around and made the comeback, which was impressive. I think I read DJ Chargers 93% chance to make the playoffs. So that's impressive. So I don't know. You look, every week from the NFL, I'm not going to complain. I'm happy, and I have the ticket, so I can do 4 games at once and red zone. So I'll be all right. Sorry for everybody else.
I think that the way I look at it is the last 2 weeks of November, and now with the other games, the first week of December, that's when college football really takes over the weekends. And we'll see how it goes with this playoff stuff because it'll be new. It'll be more widespread. It just won't be semis and then finals. We'll have games leading up to that, right? Another couple of weekends.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm fine with it because when we get deep in November, outside of Thanksgiving Day itself, it screams college football anyway.
Yeah. But, it's no different than any other weekend. I mean, with college football, you're right. We got huge games. I mean, tomorrow you got, Indiana, Ohio State. Mm-hmm. I'll be curious to see if the Hoosiers are really, really, up to that game. But no, I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think a lot of the college games, you get the excitement. I think the playoffs only going to bring it up, particularly as this committee continues to just botch the rankings. But NFL is Sunday, and you got to remember too, from a nation standpoint. I mean, so many people are involved in fantasy football is ramping up right now as we're heading towards the playoffs. You got gambling aspect. People are still gambling on these games. So even these games that suck, that people are going to watch.
But if the Devils win, I am going to be so hungover with joy. I won't even be able to open my eyes on Sunday.
When your program really isn't real is when your head coach is pleading with the fans not to sell their tickets to BYU fans. Just saying.
Well, yeah, that you've been here. How many LDS people live in this area, which I am near?
Yep.
I mean, I'm surprised you lived here how long?
3 years, 4 years, I think.
Right. I'm surprised you didn't convert.
Between my 3 stops in Utah and in Phoenix. Yeah,
yes.
No, you're right.
What's wrong with you, man?
I know.
You heathen.
I like to drink.
Okay, what's wrong with you?
and I like caffeine. But otherwise, yeah, everything else. I don't think the church would accept me, honestly. And that's fine. This game's going to be fun. I'm excited. I don't know who to. I'm kind of like I was listening to you guys earlier. I really don't know who to pick in this game.
Me either.
BYU fans don't like me picking them anyways. But I also can see BYU righting all their wrongs from last weekend and just going out and winning by a couple touchdowns. I think it could happen. Even though they've displayed only really win by 1 point, it seems like every game, but it could happen.
Man, a couple touchdowns. It feels like this game ought to be close no matter who wins. It feels like this ought to be a close game. We don't have a lot of examples of ASU getting blown out. They've only lost 2 games. One they lost by 10 on the road without their starting quarterback. The other, I think, was an 8-point loss. So no one's beaten these guys by a couple touchdowns. Nobody's beaten BYU by a couple touchdowns. And I suppose it could be a tight game and it's 7 points and one team is driving and you throw a pick six, so it ends up being 14, but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like a game where in the middle of the third quarter I'm like, what else is on because this thing is over? I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Arizona State's not used to being in big games like this. They beat Kansas State, so that was a good win there. But now, the pressure is on at home. BYU is really, had a lot of close games. They seem to be better tested in my mind and who they played. So, like any game, it's going to come down to mistakes. Who makes the least amount of mistakes in the big plays? And I could see Arizona State, with a crowd at home tightening up a little bit, knowing that they need this win to have a shot. BYU's obviously in the same boat, but they're the underdog going in. Maybe losing to Kansas kind of loosens them up a little bit, takes a little bit of the pressure off, and now they just go at it and they go for it. I don't know. I'm with you though, and I'm happy it's at 12:30, at least my time, 1:30 your guys' time too. I'm tired of these 8 o'clock kicks or whatever they are.
Yeah, amen to that. But, I mean, you can also argue, Kevin, that, man, just a couple of weeks ago, if they lose this game, looking back, you were ranked 6th. You were right there to get a first-round bye. You were right there to play in the Fiesta Bowl, and you let it slip through your hands. So I think you can go whichever way you want in that psychological game.
Yeah, and I think that too. And you know what? And BYU needs to win. BYU got screwed, and I think I heard you say basically the same thing, PK, earlier this week. I was tuning in to you guys, and in that whole poll, it's right. I mean they're not 6 right now. Obviously, when you lose to Kansas, that's an awful loss. I'm not going to lie. You can't lose to Kansas at home, although Kansas is playing a lot better football, maybe some of the best football in the Big 12 right now. But to drop 8 spots after that loss and fall behind SMU, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this all week long, but it's a joke. It's such a dog and pony show. Nothing has changed the way this system is set up. And whether back in the day when it was, went from bowls to a 2-team playoff to a 4-team playoff, now you got 12 teams. It's all the same. Big Ten SEC controls the whole thing. It's corrupt, but that's to what we were talking about. BYU, that should motivate BYU. Now suddenly, again, and coaches use these with these kids all the time. Look how we're screwed. We're disrespected. Let's go in and beat a ranked Arizona State team. Win against Houston. Win the big. That's the beautiful thing about BYU. They can. It's all in front of them. So if they can go down there and just loosen it up a little bit, not play as tight, don't make the mistakes, convert in the red zone, obviously, which was a huge issue against Kansas. I don't know. I like their chances. I just think they're going to be motivated in this game.
Yeah,
not saying fair. Arizona State won't, but I don't know. There's something there that I feel like BYU is going to go down there and get a pretty good win, and suddenly they'll jump from 14 and most should leapfrog Boise State because Boise State's living off a 3-point loss to Oregon. They haven't beaten anybody.
I think when it comes to the whole
UNLV, but
I think when it comes to the whole thing about college football and brands and the money that's flowing from the TV networks and soon to be flowing from the streaming platforms. I don't know if you saw the news, but the NFL's just flexed a really good game away from Fox to Amazon and handed the big old poo-poo platter over to Fox. Here, Cincinnati and Cleveland. Off of Thursday night, you go to Fox. Chargers, Broncos, you both have winning records. You're headed for the playoffs. Go to Thursday night. Play on Amazon. But as they chase the money at the pro and the college level, I think that it's more stupidity than corruption. And I think the reason is Georgia. If I were doing this, Georgia would not be ranked 10th. Georgia's played 5 quality opponents and gone 3-2. I'd have them much higher. Texas has played one good team and gotten smoked at home by Georgia, and they're 3rd. It's just stupidity. Because if you really are all about the money, we all watch big games. That's why they're called big games. Georgia played 5 of them. Reward them. Don't, Texas, you do that, and everybody's going to be playing directional schools. Sorry, Central Michigan. They're going to be playing G5s like San Diego State. Georgia went out and scheduled Clemson. People are going to watch that. Georgia played 4 games against the top half of the SEC. Bad luck on the luck of the draw for Texas. They played like 5 of the 6 worst teams in the league.
Yeah,
it's like Indiana. They played the bottom half of the Big Ten. It's just still like, but did you try to schedule a game? Because Ohio State didn't. Ohio State played 3 gimmies. Ole Miss didn't. They played 4 gimmies. Texas tried to schedule Michigan. Michigan turned out to be, having a terrible year. They didn't know they were going to have the coaching change and the whole senior class was going to leave when they scheduled the game. But Georgia, 10th. If they were really all about the money, they'd pump Georgia up and everyone would be encouraged to play a tougher schedule and to schedule big non-conference games that would make the TV networks money. I think it comes down to herd mentality and people running scared and being stupid.
Well, coaches in general, I mean, they want to make sure that they're playing, the easiest schedule they possibly can play. But that's the thing we're seeing with SEC and Big Ten because they have so many teams now. This is going to happen.
Yep.
Where Texas is going to get lucky and not have to play the top of the of the crop in that in that league, and what I think it is really is it's kind of herd mentality, but also I think it's just Big Ten and SEC. They just want to make sure as many of their teams are going to be in this as possible, and I'm looking at the rankings now, and they have 10 of the 12. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and you're not counting Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame's the independent.
One of the two. Notre Dame's one of the two.
Yeah.
Miami. And Miami hadn't played
Notre Dame.
anybody.
Look, Notre Dame has a couple quality wins, but they lost to Northern Illinois.
Right. They did win at Texas.
Are they getting
A&M.
penalized for that? BYU loses to Kansas, and I get it, but and they drop 8 spots. But I guess the difference is, and this is the other flaw in this whole college football thing, is Notre Dame's loss was the second week of the season, and for BYU, it's towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's never going to change. And I guess that's just the charm of college football, that we're going to sit here and debate and get angry, every time on this. But I guess the one good thing, again, and this is the difference for BYU than the god-awful independence years and being a part of the, the Mountain West Conference, and before that, the WAC and all that. If they win that, usually if you win the conference, win the championship game, you're going to be in the playoff. You're supposed to. But now you got a scenario that if Army beats Notre Dame and Boise State, then there's a chance that, you're going to get in. You win the title, you get in. Control
Kevin,
what you can control.
Your weekly opportunity to dump on Kyle Whittingham. Go.
I'm not going to this week. I actually liked what Whit said this week. I enjoyed and the good thing about Whit is I do miss that he does give you good stuff. And like him breaking down the new world, and something I never really even thought about, of having to have to simplify your game planning, simplify your systems, because players now are coming and going so much. I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing, that he's going to involve Scally and OC hiring, I think that also tells you that, it's not a surefire thing that Whittingham's going to come back next year.
And you
so I'm not going to, no. I mean, look, the season is what it is. Colorado's, as he said, the best team they played, which was an interesting shot, but it's probably true right now. They're going to go Iowa State. They're probably not going to win that game. They're not going to go to a bowl. It's just going to be really curious to see what happens in the offseason and what Whittingham decides to do.
There's the dark cloud that we wanted.
Had a kid. It took a minute. You had to warm up. You don't want to pull something, though. You got to stretch. You got to loosen up.
I've been thinking about hanging out in the sun of the desert all this interview, so I lost my edge.
Well, it is beautiful out today. I'm looking out the window.
I think more things.
It's raining. We're having a bomb cyclone in Northern California, whatever the heck that is. I've never heard of a bomb cyclone. And apparently what it is just rains like what for like a week with heavy winds. So I'm really enjoying
I read it was because the atmospheric pressure dropped and the winds were massive, which I guess is why there's so many trees and power lines down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
look at you being the meteorologist now.
I want to finish one thing on
around the weather people.
I want to finish one thing on Kyle Whittingham and why he said what he said about Colorado being the best team. I think multiple things are true at the same time, and I think Colorado. BYU fans can be upset when he said it. At the moment he said it, BYU is undefeated.
Yeah.
And so it sat really poorly. Now, subsequently, BYU lost, so what he said seemed more reasonable. His team lost by 1 point at the very end and mad about penalties, whereas Colorado, that game was over at halftime. Come on, Colorado dominated Utah. At 21-6, Utah was not coming back. They weren't. So he says it's true. Now, number two, does he enjoy saying it? Does he like it? That's what rivalries are about. And there's bad stuff that happened down on the field with the phone and his family years ago. So was there some level of personal? Can't rule that out. But the thing that was talked about is I don't think he thinks he recruits against Colorado very often. And he does recruit against BYU for in-state kids. He absolutely does. And Colorado, maybe occasionally in the transfer portal or for a kid in Texas. But he recruits against BYU
a
all
little
the
bit,
time.
though.
What?
It's a rivalry game. Mm-hmm. You're playing at Utah at the time. Utah rises up to play BYU. I mean, that was their season. You could just tell on how motivated they were and how they played in that game. So,
and they didn't have
and Utah had to go on the road.
Yep.
And play Colorado and get beat down. So, I see what you're saying, and I can understand why Whittingham said what he said. But at the same token, Utah did play much better in a game because it's a rivalry game against BYU.
No doubt that's a factor. They were up for that game at home.
And it was a letdown game. Look what happened to BYU against Kansas. They let down after the rivalry game. That's the problem with that rivalry game playing, in not in the middle of the season or towards the end of the season. That's hard when you rise up, particularly this rivalry, one of the best in the country, and just the emotions and the physicality of that game and everything that happens after that game, and heck, BYU was up till 5 a.m. the next morning because they were partying and celebrating. It throws them off, and then you got to turn around and flip, and particularly when you're in a conference now where you're playing better teams on a regular basis and you're playing for something every week, particularly BYU's case right now. I mean, that's tough for both those schools to have to flip around and be up and ready to go the following week against good teams.
And that's why the SEC played Mercer and New Mexico State and Murray State and Louisiana Monroe last week in a bunch of games that were just total and complete snoozers. And that's why the SEC is going to go out and do it again this week against UMass and UTEP and Wofford and whoever else they can truck in.
Yeah.
They do
and
it,
the Big 12 could do the same, but if they do the same, they'll get the meat for it.
Yep.
It's unfair. But, again, go take care of business, man. If BYU go out, get as convincing of a win as you can against Arizona State, and even if you win by just a few points, you can't be penalized for that because you're playing a ranked team. Just get it done. And they'll jump Boise State.
Kevin, we'll leave it right there. We appreciate it. You enjoy the wind and the rain and the football, even the bad NFL football.
Yeah, and thank you for not bringing up my Jets and how they fired their GM and all that kind of crap.
You just got to hope
that
you
just end the season.
Yeah, I know. I have heard that one before. Yeah. That's good. Remember, we have an owner. Remember when the owner fired Robert Saleh? What was his quote? Thinking is overrated. So that's our owner.
Well, maybe he'll get him appointed ambassador to Great Britain again, and he'll get out of the way, and someone competent will come in.
I hope so, but it can't happen soon enough. All right, gents. Well, hey, have a wonderful football weekend. PK, hit them straight down in Phoenix if you're feeling up for it before the game or after the game. Have a good time.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Right, see you guys.
DJ PK, there is Kevin Graham, his weekly visit to talk all things football. When we come back, everything you missed in this show, the Jazz, the Utah Hockey Club, BYU, ASU, and the NFL. Next, stay with us.